Alright. Hello YouTube, my name is Agent Omega, and I do things. Before we begin, I've got a couple things to take care of. So, the first thing is that I do have a Space Engineers build in the works. The ship is 95 or more percent complete. Basically, I have a couple more calibration things to do with various scripts that we've got here, and other stuff on the ship, greebling and the like. Oh, I've never seen this cutscene before. Anyway, so, I hope to have that build done sometime in the next month. The ship is basically functional. It's just the finishing touches, the little bits of polish to really make it workshop ready. I also have I have 4 scripts on there that I wrote for myself, but 2 of them are robust enough to publish as standalones that are separate from the ship. So I'll definitely include links to those when I get there. Now, the next thing is I want to talk about my history with this game, or, well, not this particular game, but the original game, back in 2000, whatever. So, it was my first or second Final Fantasy game I played ever, of all time. And so that basically makes this the gateway game for me into the series. The other one potentially being Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. So I had a very skewed view of Final Fantasy coming in. And while this by no means, even back then, was the best game of all time, it was still a really good game, a really fun game. And it sort of predisposed me to more action-based Final Fantasy games, with, of course, the exception of Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which was a TRPG instead. So when I got to mainline Final Fantasy games like FF7, I was surprised at how different that was, and, you know, it was far more prototypical JRPG. So, with all that said, I do have a little bit of a favorite... I do have a little bit of favoritism towards this game, a little bit of nostalgia bias. So I'm going to be going through this single-player version and kind of giving my own stance on what's going on with the game. It's by no means perfect in its current incarnation, and I understand why some folks have issues with the multiplayer and all that whatnot, but I'm just going to give my own take as we go ahead and play, and let's get started. So, first things up, I filled out my village entirely, and what the game makes you do is you create your first character, you go through the tutorial, and at that point, everything else unlocks. You know, you can do the multiplayer, you can just hop right into single player, but I elected to create all freaking 8 characters, and that's really important, because the merchants in your main city are the family members of your characters. So whenever you complete something in single player or as the host of a dungeon, you get to write home a letter and improve their disposition, and that unlocks more stuff. So I created all 8 slots. So far, I've just been joining other people's multiplayer games intentionally. And what that allows me to do is my character, and actually let's see if I can take a look at her stats before we do anything else.
That's right.
So I'm just going to pop into town real quick. Now, for my purposes, I wanted to keep different multiplayer groups separate, at least if I'm the host. I wanted to be able to have the same general cast of people, but I wanted my progress to be dependent upon what everyone in the group was doing. So what that allows me to do is that I've been joining on other people's games and unlocking stuff. Now, if I open up this menu, and we head on over to the key items, you can see that my character has collected a whole bunch of artifacts, despite the fact that I haven't actually completed any dungeons in single player or as a host. So that means that even though I don't have any story progress, I've still made a lot of progress on this character. This is not the default Clavat stats. As you can see, my strength and defense are both 35, and my magic is basically baseline. And I have, as you can see, a ton of defense artifacts, and it just keeps track of all this stuff. So I have like the extra command slot and all that whatnot off the bat. I have extra gil. I've already upgraded some of my equipment, and ironically enough, we're not actually going to be playing on this character, because in single player I do want to start fleshing out my village. And so we are going to switch real quick to the person that I believe is the child of the merchant family, and that is Takumi. But real quick, I'll just go through each of the characters that I created and sort of what purpose I created them for. So from the setup menu, and a lot of this stuff is exactly the same as it was back in the day, we have Mega. She is the, I want to say, the tailor's daughter. Alice is the... Let's get past that. LS is the blacksmith's daughter. Adelaide is the researcher's daughter. I think it's the alchemist, specifically. I really wish I could remember what the one I'm forgetting is. But I remember Takumi is the merchant, Hanako is the butcher, Mokchu is the farmer's kid, and Erebus is the fisherman's kid. So whatever that last one is whatever Alice has. We're going to be starting on the general merchant because they have a ton of materials for the blacksmith to use. Now the game has an interesting crafting mechanic where you basically pick up blueprints in dungeons, and then if you have the materials for those stuff, you know, you upgrade your character. So we're going to go ahead and start on the Riverbell Path. I've played this in multiplayer a good 5 times since the game came out, so I've got this one down to just about a science, and I can tell you almost exactly what material is going to drop when. But let's get into some of the good things and the ugly things about this game. Now, the game originally came out on GameCube, and GameCube didn't really have any networking capabilities. There was an add-on that let you use an Ethernet cable for some local play in certain games. I think Kirby Air Ride was one of them. Melee might have had some capability there, but I might be making that up. But it was very niche. There weren't too many games that had networking on the GameCube back then, except for maybe also like Phantasy Star Online. This game was definitely not one of them. The big thing about this was the couch co-op, where, you know, people would bring their Game Boy Advances and their connection cables over, and they would all play as a party. Now, for that reason is why I can say that although the multiplayer might not be what people expected, it is kind of, as someone who played the game back in the day, it makes sense why it developed the way it is. Because originally, multiplayer would all take place on the same save slot, and now you can't. You're not using the same characters from the same village, you're using your own character from your village. And for that reason, you do kind of have to do something with the saves. And you could either try to synchronize story progress, and you might be able to do that by saying, if the dungeon that the person is doing matches the dungeon that they actually have in story, then go ahead and mark that as checked off, and you give them the progress and all that whatnot. But there are a few other mechanics that sort of make that a little bit more kludgy than what they did. The next thing I'm going to get to here is the controls. The controls haven't really changed too much. I mean, obviously I'm playing on PS4, so that's technically different than a GameCube controller, but the general controls are basically the same, and that makes it a little bit funky to play at times. Like, if you're more used to current day hack and slash games, this is much slower paced, I think. It almost has a vibe similar to Final Fantasy XI. especially contrasted against Final Fantasy XIV. Now, let me just sidebar real quick. I'm changing my chalice to water because I've played the game enough that I happen to know that the next miasma stream that we can cross is water aspected. And therefore I want to pick this element up while we're here. One thing that I think was in the game before, but is definitely something that most people don't know about, is that after you've completed a dungeon, you can go back to the exterior of the dungeon and change your element to any of these elements that show up in the dungeon. In River Bell, that is water and air, so I can always change my chalice to either of these. That becomes important in Year 2 onward because everything changes. You know, you have to cycle through elements to get to the one you need. So back to what I was saying about multiplayer, I think what they did makes sense because you do have 8 characters that now you effectively need to grind out. And if you're not playing them individually, all of a sudden, you know, how are you supposed to keep up with any of them? Like, you can grind very far on one character, but all of a sudden, the rest of them aren't as good. And then when you get back to the single-player bits of augmenting your family, you know, you're going to get to harder and harder dungeons, and you're not going to be able to complete them. Now, one thing that I'll say, again, back to the control aspect of this stuff, is that it does feel kind of laggy, and I'm not just talking about the fact that the game is still rendering in 30 FPS. I actually don't really care about that fact. I think the texture upgrades, well, not really upgrades per se, that the texture touch-ups is nice enough, and I'm not even really noticing the 30 FPS per se. The thing is that I can be attacking like this, and in order to defend, you have to switch in the upper left-hand corner using the bumpers to defense. Now, of course, there's a bit of a delay, so if I attack, I just spammed defend there, and I basically can't interrupt my own animations, and I think that's something that games start doing these days, so this is probably just a legacy, or an artifact, a relic of old GameCube-style controls. So you do kind of have to plan what you're doing a little bit more. You have to be... It's all premeditated, basically. You need to be methodical about your attacks, your defense uses, and for the most part, I prefer just to run out of the way, because that doesn't have the same kind of animation delay. Now, I will say that I had been playing in multiplayer Clavat, which is basically the human characters. Currently, I'm playing a Selkie. Clavats have shield and sword, and that makes them a whole heck of a lot more defensive. Selkie, on the other hand, is more of the roguelike character. They're more attack-oriented. They've got slightly lower spell than Clavats, but not nearly as worse as, or not nearly as bad as the Lilties base spell abilities. Lilties are basically pure attack. They've got a bit of defense, I think, but not as much as the Clavats, and you know, they're not as good as spellcasting. So the Clavats, with their shield ability, they actually do take less damage. I feel like this sort of a dodge, just to... Oh, hold on. Let me see if I can execute this properly. This sort of a dodge feels like it's less important than the Clavat's attack ability, so... I mean, the Clavat's shield ability, which totally negates a normal attack's worth of damage. I haven't really been able to properly time a dodge with this character, so I'm not sure how useful the Selkie defense ability actually is. Now, one important thing is that when it comes to materia, I don't remember if this was the same in the base game at all, or if this is new, but materia definitely drops in the dungeon, and so you kind of come in with whatever food and the like you start off with, and then you pick up materia along the way. And shortly we're going to get some materia that is a duplicate of each other, and I'm going to try to show off what happens when you get that. Hopefully we're also going to get a command artifact while we're in here, because command slots are basically priceless. One neat thing is that while you're in the dungeon, you get access to the artifacts that you picked up temporarily whilst in the dungeon, and then at the end, you get to pick one of those artifacts to permanently keep. In multiplayer, everybody gets to pick one. So, basically, that's off of how well you do during the performance of the dungeon itself. Now, what I picked up just there is one of the blueprints. If I have the correct materials, which I believe is just iron and some other stuff, then that would be a weapon upgrade. You'll notice that it said, like, novice weapon upgrade, so that means that it can apply to any race. Each race is basically the class system for this game. There is no real class, but there are equips that you can have. Selkies, for instance, you see that they use this paddle-type thing. Clavets, as I mentioned, they have sword and shield. Lilties, I think they're spear or mace, possibly. And then Ukes, they definitely have like a cudgel of some sort. And they're more the casting-type character. And each character, of course, also has different defensive abilities and all that whatnot. For the most part, though, it plays very similarly, like regardless which character you pick, so that is, you know, your mileage may vary. I kind of like that because it means that I can play whatever I feel like and sort of be flexible, but it also really depends on sort of what your gameplay style is, what kind of character your friends are playing, etc., etc. Alright, now, this is a part that I've played numerous times, and I can tell you that I'm about to get another piece of Blizzard materia. Around the corner. Yes! Alright, perfect. And I just got a Moogle Pocket, which is the artifact that improves your slots. So, we are going to do something real cool here. I'm going to remove fire, because it's going to end up useless later, and I'm going to slot in that second blizzard. It automatically formed Blizzara. Blizzara, in single player, you have to combine materia like this, or magicite, sorry, I keep calling it materia, but it's magicite. So you combine magicites like this to create more powerful spells. In the multiplayer, you can't actually stack materia magicites like that. Each person gets a magicite for each type, and then if you stack the cast bars and release them at the correct time, then you can create stronger and stronger spells. Now, the nifty thing that I found out is that even with 2 people, you can still stack 2 regular Blizzard casts, and as long as you pull off the timing correctly, you can cast Blizzaga, which is the tier 3 of the Blizzard spell, for those not in the know. Alright, so here we have the Moogle House. In single player, as you can see, I've got this Moogle. It carries around the chalice for me. Now, when I come here, they should be able to give... Oh, you know what? I think they do give you stamps, but I think they only do it in the 2nd year or later. I could be wrong about that. And, I also just realized that... did I miss some? I think I might have missed something. So let me just backtrack real quick, because I'm being paranoid. But there are these things, Moogle stamps. They're basically just Wii collectibles that you put in your book. And I have a feeling that there's, some kind of PSN achievement. Now, to detail more things about the Moogle, in addition to carrying the chalice, it can also boost particular spells, or I think it can cast spells based upon what it's painted as. Right now my Moogle isn't painted as anything because I'm pretty sure I clipped off all its fur, but for instance, blue is blizzard, red is fire, and I think green is thunder for some reason, even though you would think that's wind. Okay, now did I get this chest over here? I think I did, so we're good. At this point, I believe all we have left is the final boss for this level. So I realized I kind of just jumped into the actual gameplay mechanics itself, some stuff about multiplayer, some stuff about single player, but I haven't really gone over the story at all. And of course, because I completed my first character, we don't get any of the cutscenes, we don't get any of the premise. So for those of you who are totally new to this and tuning in today, basically you are part of a caravan that has to go out yearly to fetch this resource called myrrh and replenish your town's crystal. And the crystal keeps out both the miasma. You can see there's like a gas around this orb that I have around me. And that stuff is poisonous. It'll pretty rapidly kill any living thing, or any living humanoid-esque life form that's outside of it. And so you go out, you collect myrrh, and go figure, the myrrh's behind the bosses. So it's sort of like, how to describe it? It's kind of episodic. It's not the most involved plot per se, but it is a nice little departure from Final Fantasy, and the soundtrack is freaking amazing. Like, this music really sets the whole "you're about to fight a boss" tone. Now, like I said, because I fought this guy 5 times in multiplayer, I can say in multiplayer he's relatively easy, but this guy gave me a lot of trouble as a kid. So we're going to see what we can do here. That bubble there is a slow. I'm probably going to get hit by it at some point in time, but not at this very moment. That is a thunder shot. And those are his basic attacks in the early part of the game. He also does a jump slam ability, I think. And periodically, as you saw, it will also summon bats. So as long as you keep moving, and as long as you, like, plan your casts, you'll do just fine. But it definitely helps having the extra person there, whether it be to draw attacks or to help cast a Blizzaga. Blizzaga seriously makes short work of this fight. Look, Blizzard is pretty good too. Now you can see there I just got slowed. There is a Cure Magicite, I think, or not a Clear Magicite. And Clear basically functions like Asuna, so if I had that, I could potentially cast that on myself to remove it, but I don't think it manifests itself this early in the game. Now you can see there, it just did the jump attack that I was talking about. That thing progressively gets faster, or tracks you more, I think. Oh, now that's interesting. I don't know if it's because I hit it directly with the Blizzara, but the ad just there seemed to die when it took, when I took the slamming attack to the face. So I'm wondering if the enemies have friendly fire on it or something. So one gameplay difference that I haven't mentioned yet between single player and multiplayer is that in single player you have the Moogle, they carry the chalice, they also sometimes cast things if you've painted them, and I'll also show off the painting interface. But in multiplayer, there is no Moogle. Everybody, like, one person has to be carrying the chalice at all times, or it's on the ground to, you know, deal with a set of enemies. And I'll loop back to that because I think that's sort of an ingenious mechanic for GameCube era. Now, to talk about what the boss is doing, now that it has its little head hammer thing removed, it gets faster and it starts casting a Thundara instead. So basically, it gets its powered-up spell as well, whereas it was just casting Thunder before. I'm kind of waiting... Yeah, there we go. For it to cast Thundara again, so I can hit it with a nice Blizzara. And now that I know its attack patterns, having fought, 5 times since the re-release, this boss is pretty much cake. I think if you come back in later years, it does get harder, but then again, you also have better equipment, so that makes sense. And there we have it, first boss down. Not my fastest kill, but that's the gist of the entire game. You go into a dungeon, you explore the whole thing, kill the boss, get to the merchry, and then we've got a couple more mechanics coming up that only happen when you're the host or in single player. And now that I've completed this, I have to be very careful to only make one save. Because, as I mentioned, I only really want to use this save when I'm joining other people's games, or when I'm playing by myself. If I'm ever the host, I don't want to be using the save, because that means I'll be ahead of whoever I'm playing with.
Here you go, Capo.
Now, this bit happens, like this bit displays, or whatever, to everybody that's in the multiplayer session, but whoever the host is gets this letter. Now, Roland, in this case, I believe, is either my dad or one of the other people's dads. I think I'll reply, I'm fine. Again, this guy is the merchant, I think. So let me see what items I have to send. Bronze is nice, but I think I'll keep it because I've got... I think I can upgrade with the novice weapon or the bronze armor. You know what, we'll go ahead and send Gil. We'll go ahead and send 100 Gil, because that's not a whole heck of a lot, but that's, I think it's a pretty sizable amount. Actually, you know what, let's go with 50 Gil, because I think one piece of gear might be 210, 260, something like that, so... Yeah, it's a little taciturn, but, for a 2000 game, this makes sense.
Don't keep me waiting, Capo.
Wait, hold on. Read the letter once more. Oh yeah, that's the one that I already read. And I've got the response. And we'll just get out. So next we move into the artifact selection phase. In multiplayer, you'll... Actually, this might also do it in single player as well, but people get bonus points based upon the objective they're assigned at the beginning of the match, as well as other stuff. So in my case, take physical damage. I got hit a few times by bosses, by enemies, but as long as you have at least one person with a cure materia, or if you bring plenty of food, perfectly fine. So I got 125 points here, and now I get to select my artifact. In multiplayer, everybody gets to pick an artifact in the order that it's, listed or whatever. They also put a timer on it, so, you don't run out and you don't make everybody else wait. Magic +3 is tempting. That's actually really tempting. That's the highest magic modifier I've personally seen yet. But the Moogle Pocket is indispensable because I can do things like make Blizzara. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. but some other really good ones are like hit points up. As I mentioned on my clavat, the first thing I did was I got defense up so that even when I took damage, it was only like a quarter of a heart instead of a half of a heart or a full heart. So that kind of became my priority. And then when I got the opportunity, of course, I also got a command slot there, and then I started working on strength, and then, magic, so on and so forth. It's basically whatever you want to prioritize as it's going, but because I showed you that menu earlier, you can collect one of every artifact eventually, and then, you'll have the maxed out stats for whatever race you're playing on, and there will be like a negligible difference at endgame between a totally maxed out race. Now, one really cool thing is that they have this diary. It keeps track of random stuff that can occur on the road or your dungeon results, and I think this is just the one... Yeah, this is just the one page, but you can sort of scroll through it and you can see different things. They also have memories associated with it. Those are the cutscenes that play when you initially get these. But the main ones for like beating a dungeon, they don't have it because you can just go back in and play the dungeon again. So I think that is it for the diary. Now we're going to go ahead and move on out from the Riverbelt Path and get a random occurrence. Now this might happen after you beat your first dungeon every single time.
Have you heard of the Black Knight?
Ah, yes. Okay, so this is main story related. I do remember hearing about the Black Knight the first time I played the game, but PSA, I never actually beat the game back on the GameCube, because I was only 12 or something like that, and I had a limited attention span. But,
few these days ever set out to better themselves.
The other thing is I think I might have trapped myself, like, I might have picked a character that wasn't really good for what I was doing, and trapped myself on the other side of a miasma stream with an element that didn't let me go back. And so I couldn't upgrade myself. I got stuck in a dungeon, and it just plain wasn't fun. Now, you know what, let's, because I have been talking rather animatedly about the game and, my general favorable view of it, let's talk about some of the gross stuff that I mentioned. In addition to the controllers, there was kind of something funky, and I don't know if this is just me being really bad at UIs or something like that, or if it's actually an oversight. But if you join a multiplayer game, perhaps unintentionally, or you realize it's the wrong dungeon, when you get in there, I was unable to find an easy way to quit out. But that said, I have seen other players quit out of a dungeon, mid-progress or whatever. So I'm not really sure how they managed to do that, but my experience with it, with another friend of mine, was that we tried doing another dungeon besides Riverbell Path with them as the host, but they accidentally selected Riverbell Path again because, the UI really isn't all that intuitive sometimes. And when we got in there, or when she got in there specifically, we both tried to exit out, because I think we were in different instances. Both of us tried to manipulate the multiplayer menu as a host, and that wasn't so great. So the conclusion we came to, because we couldn't find anything in the settings menu, or any other menu for that matter, was that, okay, yeah, if we just off ourselves, then the game will reset, bring us back to the main menu, load a save, that sort of thing, and resume from there. The trick was, at that point in time, I'd already been playing multiplayer with other people, and I had made the multiple saves in this game that I've currently got. Ooh, I think this is a Moogle house here, so maybe we'll get a sticker or something. Yes! Alright, excellent, excellent, excellent. So, both of us tried to quit out of the dungeon by intentionally offing ourselves. You know, just leaving the chalice behind, running into the poison, and just dying. And that worked for me, because like I said, I'd saved before I went in. Or I'd been saving after each run because I kept getting artifacts and all that whatnot. So I had save data. She did not. So when you die, and the only thing that you have is the autosave, the game thinks, oh, you haven't actually played it all, I'm going to start from the very beginning cutscene and make you go through character creation again. And it also autosaves at the beginning of that process. So it effectively wiped out what character data she had, and she had to rebuild her character, which was, you know, simple enough. She'd already gone through the process before, already made her selections, so it was, you know, relatively quick the second time around. But we then had to replay Riverbell Path again, and she lost out on the progress from the first one. So be really careful when you're doing things with your saves. Make sure you have at least one save slot. If you're, you know, not confident that you're going to survive a particular dungeon, make sure to save beforehand. Have at least one save slot so that you don't reset your entire game. I kind of learned a minor version of this in that I started up the character creation process. Like, I made my village name, but I didn't actually create a character because there wasn't enough information about how the multiplayer was, and I kind of wanted to chat with my friends, see what they were doing, in the off chance that everybody shared a save. Of course, we now know that nobody shares a save. It's you basically just, your character gets stuff that you do online, but your main story progression doesn't, and I like that. Like I said, I'm okay with that. That means that even if I'm a badass high-end adventurer, I can still hop into a friend's game who, you know, maybe is still working through the game, and we can have fun. I could hop on a different character, get more artifacts, etc., etc. The game basically has a lot of replayability if you let it. And I think that, you know, a lot of people think, oh, it's 2020, you know, I've got specific standards, and sure, that's fine. But this is, you know, it's like a remaster. It's not a remake, and we can go into that in more detail when we get into the next dungeon. But basically, I think that a lot of the detractors for this game are people that expected too much out of it, and having played the original, I did not have those same expectations. I knew that it was going to be more limited than a lot of the games of today, and I'm just amazed that they even added something as complex as crossplay. Now, as a computer scientist, I know that crossplay is all just network code. As a network programmer, I know that as long as everybody agrees on the same packets and, you know, line endings, low endian, big endian, that sort of thing, then of course crossplay is doable. Crossplay is doable with literally any device you can imagine that has network capability and can run a game. Theoretically, if you wanted to play, like, I don't know, this is just a wild example, but everybody plays Doom on everything, right? So if that had a multiplayer component to it, theoretically you could play Doom multiplayer on a fax machine, if you were really gung-ho about that. And you could cross-play with anything you really wanted to, as long as you accounted for that in your base game code. So the fact that they took a 2003 game, you know, GameCube-era game that wasn't designed with network, and then made it crossplay is already fantastic to someone who played it back in the day. For anyone that wants to do couch multiplayer, effectively what you can do is you just get the light game on mobile or something like that, and then you bring it to your friend's house, they play on the television, you play on your mobile devices, or everybody brings a Switch kind of deal, and then that's that. You have the same exact experience. The only difference is, on the Game Boy Advance, you know, everybody's map on their Game Boy Advance screen showed slightly different details. So you had like a different teamwork sort of thing. So really, the multiplayer, I genuinely feel, is comparable to the way it was back in the original game. And everybody's, you know, of course clamoring that, oh, it doesn't save my save state across you know, etc., etc.
Oh, confound it. My ass, we Muggles aren't phased, but for you people, the danger of travel would be
But like
more
I said,
pleasant if we
I'm
didn't
fine
have
with the
to worry
multiplayer.
about places like
What I'm
this.
less fine with
On the other hand,
is some of
it
the
would also be
menus.
pretty dull without a
They're not
challenge
intuitive
element.
at all.
These streams can be a bother.
And like the invite system is very hit or miss. I don't know if it's, you know, just problem exists between chair and controller or what, but every time somebody else has tried to send me an invite, it has not worked for me. And there's like a check invite button on the main screen. It doesn't work. It never brought up anything for me, and I don't know if that's because, you know, the other player didn't actually manage to send me an invite, but the workaround that I found was, as long as I was friends with them, then I could see them at the top of the multiplayer list and just join in on their game. So that, you know, whatever, that experience was, whatever. But the fact that apparently selecting a dungeon isn't all that intuitive to a newcomer to the game, you know, it's really curious. And another thing, and this is the really big thing, this is the really, really strange thing to me, is that if you join multiplayer through the Sit Out Together menu, there's a different experience than if you join multiplayer by walking up to a dungeon and selecting it from there. If you select it from the dungeon, you just get plopped into an instance without any fanfare whatsoever. But if you do, you know, Sit Out Together, you can specify, I want to lobby with my friends, I want to lobby with this many people, etc., etc. You cannot do that from this menu. And let me just go ahead and save, because we do actually have some progress, and I want to establish this save slot as my single-player save. It's a right pity that you can't name save slots, with the caveat that if you wanted to go really crazy with this game, you could theoretically make 4 separate villages, and then, you know, that's how you keep track of whatever it is. In this case, this is good because it saves, you know, where I'm at. You can see that I'm at the Mushroom Forest. I'm on a different character than the other saves that I've been playing on. But this could get really confusing if you wanted to, like me, have sort of a mirrored state that I can use or reuse as a host for different groups of people. For my purposes, it usually just works out better if somebody else hosts and then I join them, but that's because of how I viewed the game. If you're the sort of person that wants to be the host, that wants to get the story stuff, then your use case is going to be different. So that's sort of my feelings in that regard. I would show you the multiplayer stuff, but I really don't want to do that on stream. I mean, I might do that on stream eventually, but like, this is sort of intended to be just running through the single player as I would have back in the day. So we're going to pop into Mushroom Forest next, but again, just keep in mind that if you're doing multiplayer, don't go through here. Always try to go through here if you're trying to play with people. Otherwise, it'll just dump you into a random lobby. People will join in on you, potentially. I didn't have anybody join in on me while I was trying to figure out how to leave, so that was a plus side. But other people have had more success with leaving mid-session than I have. So just be very intentional about how you use the UI. That's my biggest gripe, is that the UI is not intuitive. With that, let's get into the Mushroom Forest, and I'd also like to start talking about what I mentioned earlier about remaster versus remake. So a remake is very broad in scope. It literally means to produce something again
once asked
with
my mother,
either, you know, the
where
same
did I come
or
from?
wildly
She
different
answered,
stuff. Actually, let me look up the
"Why,
official definition.
We all sprouted from the mushroom forest, of course.
Okay, so it's to make something
Nightmares
again
soon
or
haunted
differently.
my sleep.
So there are multiple types
dreamt
of
that I was
remakes.
lost among the
Technically speaking, if I
toadstools.
re-release the
woke
exact
in
same
tears.
game on another
Felt the
system and I
warmth
don't
of
change
my mother's
anything
embrace
about it,
as she
just the
comforted
fact
me.
that it works on a
It
new
is
system,
something I
that is a remake.
still remember to
Under
this
the
day.
very, very broad definition of remake. Remaster is a subset of remake. Remaster is to make a new master of, or, you know, typically in order to improve the medium. Remaster originally applies predominantly to recordings, but, you know, in the case of games, you know, you can remaster a game and improve, you know, just like the textures or something like that. You could improve other features. So this is, you know, perfectly a remaster. It is, in and of itself, a remaster. It is not a a remaster is a remake, but it's not the broader definition of a remake. It's the very specific remastering. So that means we've got texture improvements, that means we've got, you know, the crossplay functionality and the new multiplayer stuff. That does make it a little bit more of a broader remake, just by adding that extra functionality. But it does not have to be necessarily a remake to the current time standards. It is a remake that is perfectly functional. It is a remake that, I guess, does the best with the original concept that it can, I think. Asterisk. Again, there could be some graphical, I mean, not graphical per se, but UI improvements in particular. But I think when it comes to stuff like the multiplayer and the gameplay, it all is still the original stuff. And that makes it a remaster. They haven't tweaked that stuff beyond what they needed to make it functional for modern systems. And that's, again, why I think people are getting all up in arms. It's the same reason that people got up in arms about the Final Fantasy VII remake being as drastically different from the original as it is. What people were expecting was a remaster, and what we got is a remake. And frankly, I like the remake. FF7R's remake is fantastic. It's 40 hours of gameplay on normal mode. And if you want to get everything, you have to do it all again on hard. And so, in that regard, FF7R is a really freaking good remake. It's a new take on an old concept, and the fact that they have sort of alluded to this time loop narrative and ties in sort of to the original game, and is also a commentary about itself and the original game, is sort of narratively freaking amazing. It's not a remaster, it is truly a remake in the same way that Rebuild of Evangelion, or new theatrical edition of Evangelion. Ooh, I didn't know this was a thing. But anyway, so Rebuild of Evangelion is also a remake. It's a reimagining of Neon Genesis Evangelion, much like FF7R. And it's when people set their expectations to one thing and something wildly different than they were expecting is released that we get these sort of, oh, this thing sucks scenarios. And I went into this having very lower expectations. Like, I expected very much to be playing the original game. I'm playing the original game. It works exactly like I expect. This is a remaster. It is not a full retooling. It is not a full remake. The controls are still as clunky as it was back on GameCube. The multiplayer is, you know, basically the same. So, to me, it is a perfectly fine game. people with 2020 standards that have maybe never played this game before are sorely disappointed, and, you know, I frankly wish people would not go into things having such ridiculous standards. That's my take on it. You know, I understand that it's all very opinion-based. You're allowed to have your opinion. I'm allowed to have my opinion. I think people are giving this game a worse rap than it really deserves. And I think, you know, the same thing with FF7R happened. People were expecting one thing, they got something wildly different. And ironically, I think not having completed the original Final Fantasy VII kind of helped me be one of the appreciators of the remake. And having played this game originally also makes me appreciate this remaster. So that's just sort of my rant about, you know, people and expectations, yada yada yada. Something 2020. On a lighter note, let me talk about why this chalice mechanic was a freaking amazing way to resolve multiplayer on GameCube. Now, on GameCube, you know, I mean, obviously when you're playing a game and you're on one screen, you have a limited camera. In Smash Brothers, you know, they resolve this by expanding the screen until everybody can see everything. In, trying to think of some other multiplayer games, you know, Kirby Air Ride or Halo, they did split screen to show different camera views. In this game, they took the approach of everybody has to be on the same screen. And they accomplished that with the miasma. The thing that, in the story, you know, you need to have a barrier to prevent from killing everybody in your town, also is the mechanic for keeping everyone on screen in the GameCube era. That's just freaking amazing. Now, one game that also used the Game Boy Advance for multiplayer was Legend of Zelda 4 Sword Adventures. That game was very cool because it actually rendered individual actions on the Game Boy Advance screen. So, like, when people went into different, you know, houses or caves or something like that, then the view switched to the Game Boy Advance. Like, the game even said on the screen, look at Game Boy Advance. And, go in there, I realized that I could be making gravity right now to fight this Aeroman a little bit more effectively, but I'm not. So you could do that. You could have your own individual view. If you got too far away from the main crowd of people, you would also have your own individual view. And that was just amazing. That was a great way to handle multiplayer in that particular case. And in this particular case, where they wanted everybody to be looking at the main screen, and, you know, the Game Boy Advance maybe didn't have the necessary color palette, or that sort of thing, you know, that's where it made sense to say, we'll use the Game Boy Advance to convey different information, namely what was on the map, and use the miasma mechanic to keep everybody within the camera view. Oh, it just blows my mind, you know, the thought that went into that. Or at least I would like to imagine that there was a lot of thought that went into that, because that seems like a really elegant solution for a rather complex problem, namely having multiple people run around on the same damn screen. Now let me also talk about the successors to this game, specifically the ones on the DS, because there were also My Life as a King, Crystal Chronicles, and I think that was on the Wii, but I never got to play it myself. I feel like that might also have been specific regions in some cases, but on the DS, there was Crystal Chronicles, I want to say Echo... Was it Echoes of Ages? No. Let me look that up too. But the one I remember was, like, Echoes of Time? There was Ring of Fates, and I didn't really play that one too much. But Echoes of Time, I absolutely adored Echoes of Time. And apparently that was also the Wii, which I didn't know. But I had it on the DS. And it had the similar, you know, you picked your character But in that case, I think you could actually select different weapons and stuff. So there were actually slightly more mechanics in that regard. You picked a weapon, and that sort of determined your combat style. You could be more of like a red mage or a dragoon, that sort of thing. And race, I think, just determined certain statistical biases. But that game had a kind of a similar multiplayer as this. You know, you would enter a code, or you would join locally to somebody else playing on a DS. And you would pop into their game, and I don't believe story synchronized there either. That game was definitely more plot-driven than this one was, and I don't think you collected myrrh. You did something else. I don't remember enough of how the dungeons worked to really keep commenting on that, but it was different enough from this that it definitely stood by itself. And I quite liked that about that as well. That one, I think, could be more plot-driven than this one, because, you know, it sort of had this one as, like, a backbone to work off of. You didn't get myrrh or whatever. You weren't defending a particular village. You were uncovering the mystery of your village. And, oh, that plot. Some of the characters in the plot just really made me cry. And I was actually kind of glad to see in the DLC that they had some of the character skins from Echoes of Time. And I'll probably be getting the appearance packs, but I've heard that the whatchamacallit, the equipment DLCs actually do affect gameplay in a, you know, stat boost sort of way. And those I don't like. Whenever somebody does any kind of DLC, I expect it to, you know, either, if it's going to add equipment, it has to do so by, like, adding a new dungeon. You know, you do this new dungeon, you've unlocked equipment. I don't think the Moogle actually needs to put it down. I don't think. It'll be really sad and funny if it does. Okay, the boss is ahead. I know what this boss is, because I also fought it since the end of this. And I have a feeling that rather than having a whole bunch of elemental materia, or magicites, I'm going to want the clear one, because there's a lot of stat-based stuff that's about to occur here. But anyway, so with regards to the DLC, like I said, I'm totally fine with having appearance-based DLC. You know, just come as is. It's purely aesthetic. It doesn't affect the gameplay in any way. The game is, you know, pretty much as expensive as it was back on GameCube, which, considering, you know, inflation and cost of living and developer worth and all that whatnot, I think is actually kind of fantastic. And so putting in a little extra money to, you know, for appearance DLC, that's fine by me. That's my personal stance. Again, I really don't like stat-boosting DLC unless it is locked behind some objective you need to complete, because that then is a reward for gameplay and not, I'm going to win the game by paying. So yeah, that's how I feel about that stuff. I am kind of astonished that 2 Dungeons has managed to take a little over an hour. I think I started just after 7:15. I think I've been a little bit more methodical about this, and also because I've been doing a very stream of thought. Oh, yeah, definitely don't want to stand in that. I don't even know what that is, but I don't want to find out. Now, at some point, I know he does bad breath. Like, after doing that suck-in stuff. And when he does bad breath, you want to be, like, close enough that you can get off to the side, if I recall correctly. So we do have that out of the way. I forgot he can do that. Now this is where I'd really love to have somebody along, because you do kind of need to have all of the spells that I have on my bar, but if I was a multiplayer, I would be able to cast Firaga on this guy and make short work. Oh no, I think I saw its HP tick up a little bit just there. I don't know if I'm doing it, or if that's just sort of a screen detail there, but there we see Bad Breath, of course. I think in this game it might just do a poison, maybe a stun. I don't think I got hit by that in the first multiplayer instance I did with them. And of course you can see here, it does add enemies again over time. I'm genuinely kind of wondering, we're probably about to enter the second phase, and I don't remember exactly what he does at that point in time. That spell seems to be as large as it was last time, so I'm not too fussed about it. But I am a little concerned about that drawing ability. Alright, there's Bad Breath. So far he hasn't really changed up the attack patterns. Like, he seems a little bit faster, but just dodging and weaving, that's what it's about. I think we'll probably get him in 2 more spell casts. Maybe... Oh, okay, yeah. Now, one thing I'm not entirely sure about is it kind of looks like the mobs get set on fire, but the big guy doesn't. So I wonder if having a more powerful fire caster would do that, or if bosses are just naturally resistant to damage over time. I would kind of hope not. But I will also say, again, back to my original experience with the game back on GameCube, I think I got partway through year 2, so once we get there, we're going to... So once we get to year 2, we'll start getting into uncharted territory. Oh gods, yeah, I definitely don't want to get hit by that attack. And also, thank you for joining me. Glad to have you. I almost kind of want to go back and see what does happen when I get hit by that, just to know what happens when I get hit by that, but... Unlike the crab boss, it's a little bit more difficult to recover, I think, when you get hit by the status debuffs in this one. And, you know what, I think I'll read all the diary entries later. Let's just keep the gameplay rolling. I'm probably going to do the third dungeon in year 1, and then we'll call it there for the evening. Generally in this game, I think it's 3 dungeons per year. I think it may potentially increase to 4 in later years, so that just sort of explains the progression that's going on. It looks like... Oh, okay, so it looks like Roland is definitely somebody else in the village, but this one comes from my brother, so let's try to improve their disposition here. Ha, jeez, that's awfully pretentious. Alright. Alright, let's see what items I have here, because once again, my family is the merchants. In single player, I'm not really going to need Phoenix Downs. I mean, if I die, I don't know if I automatically raise. Ah, yes, so in this game, Moogles talk. That's just a thing that happens. And I mentioned this way, way earlier in the stream when I was talking about Final Fantasy Tactics. Or rather, I mentioned that I played Final Fantasy Tactics Advance as one of my first 2 Final Fantasy games, so Moogles also talk there, and both of them portray Moogles in very different ways. So every Final Fantasy game I've played thereafter, all of the Moogles have been different, and it's really weird, but sort of interesting to see that happen. But yeah, in Crystal Chronicles, all of the Moogles talk, and the other thing is that in the remaster, some of the stuff is actually voiced, unlike last time, so that's definitely interesting. Nope.
I've got your reply, Capo. So long, Capo.
Alright, so last time I got the Moogle Pocket, so as you can see, I clearly can't select it again. The extra heart is really nice. Strength plus 2 could be okay, but I think I'm going to go with the extra heart for now. I like a little bit more survivability, and the defense buffs aren't high enough to worry about selecting them just yet. I'm not, like, building this into a highly defensive character. Because this is probably the one I'm going to play on single player the most, I'm just going to prioritize livability, so that'll be HP first, maybe defense, and a whole heck of a lot of attack and magic. Mars Pass. I feel like back in the day you used to actually have to go in here, and then, you know, if you exited to the left, you went to the port. If you exited right, you went to the last dungeon in Year 1. And I think there might also be a Moogle stamp somewhere in here, so we'll check that out too.
Howdy. Hey.
Ooh, these people have mithril. Well, that's awfully pricey, but if you play a lot of multiplayer, then you rack up the Jill pretty quickly. Or, is it Jill? Gil? Yeah, you rack up the Gil pretty quickly. And I think my the other character that I've been playing a lot of multiplayer on is already well over 1,000. So mithril would be fairly affordable, you know, just playing with friends a lot. If I pooled my money, there's a Moogle back in your home village that acts as storage across characters, and all that whatnot. It's good to know that there are tons of recipes here, but since we don't have enough money for the materials and the recipes, we're probably just going to go into the next dungeon with the exact same equipment we have here. Let me see what I have to sell. Let me just see what recipes I have, because sometimes it's not really worth carrying duplicates of stuff. Iron Shield, I know I already made this on my multiplayer character, so unless I wanted this on the other clavet I have, there's no real point to holding on to it. Otherwise I could put it in the storage section. I want to say, oh yeah, Lilties get gloves as their defensive items, Ukes get helmets, I think Selkies get belts. And you'll also notice when I upgrade, eventually, that also changes the actual appearance of the weapon and the belt on my character.
Oh.
Alright, let's see what I can make here. I can't make bronze armor, but I can make a weapon upgrade, so let's go ahead and take care of that. And we'll also go ahead and go back to this vendor real quick and sell my old one.
Hey!
But we can't actually sell the old one. So I'll figure that eventually. But we do have the upgrade for the neck. Alright, so this guy... Oh, they actually have a separate blacksmith and armor, so you know what? We're going to go ahead and equip this bronze plate. Armor in and of itself does not change your skin, I don't think. But the race-specific armors, you know, like shields or bracers, belts, helmets, etc., those do change your character appearance. We'll go out to the left, we'll check out the port real quick. I have a feeling I missed a Moogle house in there, so I'll probably go back in on my way through to the dungeon. Wait, is this actually a port? Or is it, Yeah, it is a port, because if it was a dungeon, it would have the miasma tree, or the myrrh tree, next to it. Alright, now here, I feel like you can use this to cross the river in one of the later years. You can't actually get into this house. So yeah, there's really no reason to be here during year 1. In year 2 or 3, I think this place becomes really important. I believe it takes you to the sluices? Oh, and I will also say that, I mean, the game is capped at 30 frames per second across all devices. I mentioned that way back during Bell River, I think, or the River Bell, and I personally don't have an issue with that. It happens to work pretty well for this stream, because I remember I had some issues in FF7R. Here we found the Moogle house that I missed. So... It happens to work out for the stream that it's in 30 FPS, but one big thing of note is that I do have a capture card now. I just haven't had the time to install it. So future ones, or future streams, should A, have better FPS, less artifacting, because I'll be, you know, passing it through a dedicated capture card, and a separate machine's GPU. I think it also has a more powerful wireless device, so there won't be any, you know, bandwidth issues from that standpoint. But then the other thing is, I also have a really good microphone attached to that computer, so I won't be using the Astro A40s for my microphone. I'll be using a Blue Yeti instead. And so, if you think my microphone's good now, as some folks have commented on in prior videos, it'll only get better. So there he mentioned the mimic stuff. Mimics are the crystals that I mentioned that let you take on the appearance of other characters. So when I said the stuff about the DLC, those are all appearance crystals for characters from other games. I noticed, however, that there are like 8 DLC crystal appearances, but when I go into the menu, and I believe that's under the Mimic section, we have, you know, 4, 8, and you can see I already have another Mimic. I think I can... I'm not sure if I can do this on any character, or if it's just the Lilties, but that'll let me mimic whoever that person is. And it also confirms my theory that we have way more than 8 Mimic slots. So it's not just the DLC characters that we can mimic. There are going to be other characters in-game that we can mimic. So potentially, it'd be really interesting to be able to play as a Liltie that looks like the Black Knight. And we got a little cutscene at the crossroads after beating the first dungeon. But the Black Knight is like the main antagonist for this game, and I don't know too much about them because I haven't, you know, beaten the game, and I got stuck somewhere in year 2 the first time around. So it's kind of implied, you know, just from a narrative standpoint, that the Black Knight has something to do with the miasma or can, you know, affect it in some way. But for now, let's go ahead and pop into the Mine of Catherges. And this is going to be our last dungeon for the night, just because I want to switch gears and, you know, kind of just wind down before going to bed and getting into a more work mindset for tomorrow.
When the grandfather of my grandfather's grandfather was still a child, no one in this land could challenge the might
one
of
major
the abilities.
obvious difference
They
between
forged
multiplayer and
weapons of
single
iron
player is that because
to
you
bring the
have
world
one
under their
person
dominion.
carrying the chalice, that also
But
kind of forces you
eventually,
to
the
follow
mine
their
was
lead.
exhausted,
Or, you know,
and the
if
Loyalty's
they're willing to trail
unstoppable
behind you
conquest
a little bit, you know,
ground
they
to
can
a
follow
halt.
you instead.
Loyalty's ambition
However,
vanished
if you're a
along with the
completionist
iron.
like myself, that oftentimes
They
means that
abandoned the
you
mine
leave areas unexplored. And I
monsters
can
now
tell you
thrive.
that the last time I was in here with people, there was some stuff that I think we missed. And same thing with a dungeon that shows up in year 2. I think it's like the Goblin Mountains or something like that, and that's back in the first section of the map. So that's another reason that I'm sort of separating out my single-player save from my multiplayer saves, because I want to be able to really explore everything and, you know, just experience all of this stuff. Now, I also happen to know the solutions for this dungeon because I played it recently, like I said. Ooh, hello. Did that change my charge attack? Ooh, now that's interesting. That's something that I didn't realize. So, when I had the very beginning weapon, its charge attack was to charge up like a bolt of magic or something like that, and then, you know, shoot it. But this charge attack is way more like the Clavet's charge attack, at least with the weapons that I've tried before. And it actually lets you jump over to the enemy. Now, what we've got going on here... I kind of like this better because, like, I can pace myself differently. I think the difference between the Clavet one is that it might, like, stop earlier if you overshoot your target. I could be making that up, though. I'm probably making that up, though. But if each of the weapons have different effects, then just aside from an attack bonus, that could mean that if you favor a specific kind of gameplay, you might be able to do it across all of your characters and just have different weapons equipped. Hold on. Oh, I was kind of hoping that would hit them too. But, like, because I really like that jump in and charge type thing, that really allows me to distance myself and play at whatever range makes sense. It really helps with the Selkie's sort of dodge-based gameplay. It's almost like the difference between Clavet's being more Dark Souls-based and Selkie's being more Bloodborne-based. You know, just attack, 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 but dodge, versus attack and potentially guard. I realize both games, you know, sort of involve rolling, but, you know, in this case, like I said, my best defense is just not to be in the way of an attack. So in that regard, the metaphor holds up. Now, as I mentioned, I've clearly been in here before. For anybody who hasn't been in here before, they often fall into the trap of not realizing that you can switch the direction of the cart. And they sometimes just send it off the rails, and then the cart respawns at the very entrance, and it's just a little time-consuming. But it's the learning process, you know. Like, if you've never played the game before, of course you're not going to know everything. Alright, let's see what we have here. Now that's one thing that I don't know, and I also don't care to find out, is Phoenix Down capable of rezzing you when you're in single player? Do you need it in your command slots to do that? Or are you kinda SOL in single player and your best bet is just never to die? I'm going to try never to die, but that can be a little difficult. Like, these guys in particular, they hit way harder than the big orcs, or maybe the tough ones. They hit harder, they have more HP, and they were a real menace back on GameCube, back when I didn't have nearly the skills that I do now. Green Beret, that's interesting. Alright, let's see. Does it list my temporary artifacts, too? It does not seem to. It has it on the right there, but I can't actually select it. I think Green Beret might be a magic-enhancing item. Any rate, I also happen to know that we need to go through here. So I'm going to set that to that, but let me also follow the track the rest of the way. Okay, that goes nowhere. This goes... who knows where? Ah, back to my cart. So, while we're at it, let's go ahead and explore down this way. I think this is one of the places that we might have missed the first time I came in here. Ew. Ew. Bombs self-destruct. Hedgehogs do not. Oh, I'm on fire. Okay, let's try clear. Ooh, yeah, okay, so that does function exactly like Asuna. It gets rid of any kind of status debuff you might have. So I really quite like that. Right now, I don't think I have any kind of magic besides fire, or offensive magic besides fire, so that's kind of the reason that I haven't been spellcasting. I've just been relying on melee attacks and this jumping ability that I've now got. Alright, let's see. We've got 12 gil. Now, I believe, if I recall correctly, the next miasma stream is of the fire element, but because this is the end of the year, this is like the third chalice refill that we have, I know for fact that we're going to go back to the village. So I don't actually want to do that. Oh, hold on, I missed that. Hold on. I didn't even realize that this exit was on this floor, but that is definitely something skippable. That's definitely something that I didn't get to with my friends, so I'm already relearning stuff. This is exciting. And I do love this. I'm relearning a game from 2000-something or other. It's actually really fun in that regard. Let's get Phoenix Down back off of my bar, because I really have no need for that. Oh, okay, so yeah, this is the upper level for that main room we were in a while back. Are there any chests up here? Looks like... no, that's kind of disappointing. It almost feels like there's no reason to come up here. Like, what was the point of that? Let me make sure there's not an exit in this little right-hand corner.
It's your turn.
Yeah, seems like this whole side track was a waste of time. But that's also the beauty of this game. Like, you have to explore everything if you want to get everything. It almost kind of annoys me when somebody says, oh, I have to play the game in order to get a specific reward. Well, yeah, that's how games work. You play them, you do something, you get something. If you just expect to get something without doing anything, well, that's... I don't even have a word for that. Luck? Privilege? Alright, so we know the track is already in the correct direction. I think there's another section through here. And then after this section is the boss fight. So I'm really hoping we get something besides fire, because I don't know if fire is a good offensive spell against this guy. I would prefer to have, like, blizzard, but I know there aren't any cold-type enemies in this dungeon, so we're probably not going to get any. Ew. Ooh, now that's interesting. I managed to pull off a little miniature charge there. Yes! Alright, we did get blizzard. That's perfect. So, hopefully we get another one of these in here. I won't be too fussed if we don't, though. Let's switch to blizzard. I have a sneaking suspicion that'll be slightly more effective against the bombs than the melee attack was. It'll also keep us out of harm's way, too. So it's about as effective as the charge attack. It's definitely better than just trying to individually melee attack. I feel like most spells do that in this game. Unless you have, like, the second-tier version of a spell, they'll always be better than just a regular melee attack, about on par with a charge attack. And then, the charge, or the level 2 spells, by far, are way better, of course. Now there's a 2002 era limitation right there. Clearly I wasn't able to cast downhill. I also can't run off the side, so Z-axis was very much limited back in the day.
I'm tired, Capo.
I want to say in Echoes of Time on the DS, that was not so much of a limitation, so you could cast spells over the edge of things, you could run off of things. In fact, I distinctly recall one level was in a library of sorts, and one of the most fun things to do was to run off of a shelf and sort of get the jump on an enemy without them expecting it. Now, here's what I was saying kind of about this game being similar to Final Fantasy XI. You almost have to be, like, really deliberate about your casting, your positioning. You have to wait for enemies to move in order to actually do anything. I know for a fact there's one of those big guys with the axes somewhere around here. Yeah, there he is. I think there might be something up on this second part, so we might as well venture up here. I am prepared to be disappointed again, because I don't think I saw anything. Ooh, hello, hello, hello. Is that a borderline, or... Nope, that's just the end of this thing. So, there wasn't anything up here either. Mildly disappointing. Makes sense. But I am really liking this new weapon, for sure. I really like how the general crafting system works in this game. And there might actually be one more section beyond here, because I remember there's like a sort of a graded area with track on it, too. Ooh, ow. Ow! Oh, okay, let's get some cure off here. Now, one thing that I'm not sure if it's like a network-based thing, or if this is legitimately just how cure works, but you'll notice that, or I found on multiplayer servers that if you plopped down a cure, there was a brief period of time that, you could run through where it was and still get that same benefit, despite the fact that the cast had already gone off. So it seems like Oh, hold on. I missed the puzzle piece that should open this thing. Based upon what I saw in the animation just now for Cure, though, it seems like there is actually a lingering effect. And... is this the boss? Okay, yeah, no. I was kind of surprised, because I remembered that this section exists, but I also saw that light through the door, and I kind of thought that that meant that we were at the boss. Now, two enemies like this are a little bit more difficult in single player, of course. Oh, yes, perfect. Alright. I'm trying to remember what status debuffs the guy on the inside can do. I think he might have a paralysis-based move. I don't think he has slow. So you know what? I think what I might do is remove clear, and we'll get some Blizzara action back up in here again, because I really like that. I really wish I could show you Blizzaga, but clearly I don't have enough Blizzard Magicites for that. Alright. I feel like there was some reason... something that you had to change this for. Let me just check over here real quick again, because I feel like there was something really important you could do. Maybe it's in future years, but there's a reason that that switch gate is there. Oh yeah, feels real good. Alright. Alright, so there's no enemy there. There are going to be more enemies up here. I think this is the last platform before we get to the boss. And once again, you can see we've got the switch track. I will say that Blizzara is definitely good for dealing with the multiple foes, because the freeze effect... oh, that's thunder right there. If it had been another Blizzard Orb, I would have almost wanted to try and risk it and eschew Cure here, but I'm not confident enough in my abilities to say, let's just get rid of Cure. Alright, I think that way leads to the boss, so we'll go over this way. Ooh, examine. Yes! Alright, we found another Moogle place. And I feel like I must have missed the Moogle house in, whatchamacallit, in the mushroom place, because there's usually one per dungeon. I might try and paint him blue. I kind of want to see what happens. I definitely feel like I didn't
Whatever looks good, Capo.
do that during the first time I played this game. Get this sticker, I mean. I wasn't as methodical about, you know, searching through areas and stuff when I was younger. Now, one mechanic that they make mention of with the whole Moogle thing is that, see how it has all of its fur? They say, like, if it has all of its fur, it'll do well in a cold place, but in a hot place it won't do as well. And so like, you have to, like, strategically cut bits of it or whatever, but if you cut the hair, it also gets rid of the coloration. So I think you're supposed to, like, cut it into patterns, and then, depending upon how much fur it has, you know, it performs either really well or really awfully, not really sure. So, I think I'm going to paint him blue. can't tell if we're at full fur length or if we're at medium fur length or something like that. But I might cut like a little cheeky pattern into his fur if I'm feeling confident about that. When I was a kid, I used to just try to paint wacky designs on, and I didn't really care about having a specific color for a specific dungeon. I would just paint all 3 colors on and, you know, astonishing patterns and stuff, and I don't think I ever bothered with the scissors. So I'm trying to be just a little bit better at the actual game, but I also realize I've lost some of that whimsy as well. It is important to have some whimsy. Alright, yeah, so that's not looking too bad. Let's go ahead and... On the one hand, I kind of want to just give him like a little blue tuft in the center there and just cut everything else off, but that'd take a lot of time. So you know what? I'm going to go for like sort of a V-neck kind of thing. I'll start in the middle, just see how much it takes off. Oh yeah, it's not a whole lot at all. So we'll go ahead and kind of just do like this sort of a thing. We'll take it down to like here-ish. Just clean it up a little bit, and we'll do like this sort of a thing. Oh gods, this is super uneven. I wonder if this would be better to do on mobile, like if they let you specifically touch or draw on that thing. Oh god, yeah, because definitely on PS4, it's a little too sensitive, or it's like, it's not sensitive enough. I think that's fine, though. That's, you know what, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Save and end. So, there we go, we've got our Moogle, we've got a V-neck or something, and it's blue, so it should cast more Blizzard stuff, if I did it correctly. I've never actually seen the Moogle done correctly, so I'm just grasping at hairs. I think I might also need to put down the chalice in order to get that effect. So we'll see when we get to the boss. Usually when it comes to bosses, because you're just dodging, you can afford to put down stuff. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's real nice. Blizzara makes it so that I can take out enemies with 1 normal attack instead of 2 charge attacks. Alright, we're now on fire. I took off clear, so that's a little bit gross. Blizzara. Get wrecked. Ooh, hold on, that's new. I don't think I've seen him glow like that before. Earth Pendant. Okay, Earth Pendant just gave me an extra heart. That's going to be real nice going into the last battle. I'll probably end up taking that one unless there's something super good. Okay, that just goes back to where we came from. I really could have sworn these switch paths were important at a later point in time. Alright, here we go, boss battle. Now, I fought this guy precisely once in the remake, so I'm gonna have to relearn his attack patterns again. Yep, so I think he casts thunder-based spells. I'm definitely worried about... Oh! Never mind! He casts that! Whatever that is. It's definitely not Faraga. That's some kind of explosion-based magic. I think. Alright, I really don't like that this guy keeps harassing me, so you can stay there. He's going to try to do something, I suspect, with his hammer. Now that I'm closer... Oh yeah, there it is, the melee attack. I was expecting melee attacks for a while there. And I feel like that's going to end up being the strategy for this. I wait for him to cast his AoE, I cast my AoE, he does the slam thing, I avoid that, blah blah blah. Yeah, so that's the attack pattern for phase 1. He's just going to keep attacking when I'm within a certain range. And when I'm out of that certain range, he's going to try to cast his big AoE. I really wish I knew what spell that was. Now, it almost also kind of seems like when I do the cast, I want to hit him with the edge of it, because then he gets hit multiple times. But then it also really depends on where he is in the cast on a clock. Ow. This guy definitely isn't as bad as I remember him being as a kid. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's true of a lot of video games I've played as a kid. Like, the other day when Episode 1 Racer... Actually, this is Episode 2 at this point. But when Episode 1 Racer came back out on the Switch, it had been out on PC for a while, but the PC port was, you know, a little bit funky as games from, you know, the N64 era were. Rogue Squadron on PC still crashes a little bit for me, but when Episode 1 Racer came back out on Switch, I figured, oh yeah, the console version is definitely going to be a lot more stable, as it has to be. And so I played it, and I ended up beating the whole game in like 2 hours or something like that. And it was just... It really showed either how bad I was as a kid, or how much I've improved since then. I'm not really sure which. Oh, that's attack. I meant to cast. Thank you. I feel like the casting is doing just a little bit more damage, but I really wish I'd paid attention to that charge attack just now. Now, unlike the crab boss, I have a feeling these guys can't hurt each other, so I really do need to be a little bit more strategic about this. It also seems like the ads are time-based as opposed to percent-based. So as long as I just keep up the damage, I'll be done sooner rather than later. I know when he reaches a certain point, he, like, goes to self-destruct or something. And at that point... Oh, here it is. Here it is. I don't know exactly what he's going to do, but I just need to keep up the offensive. Oh, that's not good. That's very not good. I think he's actually going to get off his cast. Yep, there it is. Oh, yeah, so he actually does fully self-destruct, and as long as you're above a certain HP, you just win. I think if you weren't expecting that, like if you went in here and you didn't have 6 bars of, or 6 hearts worth of health, you would get wrecked at the default 4, or if you didn't have any defense, like if you were pure offense or pure casting, that would be why you definitely want to get a little bit more beefy. I'm not sure I saw the Moogle cast anything, but again, I also didn't put down the chalice, so that may be my fault. And the other thing here is, the last time we wrote a letter, it was to our brother, so we can see if the disposition improved at all by sending the Phoenix down. Now, if I recall correctly,
Male Moogle at your service, Capo.
we'll deal with the male Moogle stuff, we'll deal with the artifacts, and then we'll get to see the Year 1 celebration, because that was completing our chalice for the first time. Alright, once again, this came from our brother. Ha! He's really pleased by that. He sent us a fish, which is okay. Now, one interesting thing is that people actually have food preferences. Let me see if I can send any items that are worth anything. He seemed to like the Phoenix down, so you know what? I'm going to send another one. That just seemed as nice. But you can see that our last response was clearly correct, because, you know, Ganu now has the happy face. And I'm hoping that eventually we'll get all of the family members like that. I don't know exactly what is repeatable in the single player with regards to, you know, beating dungeons, getting caravan letters, etc., etc., or if it's just like one... Like basically, if I complete a dungeon with one character, and I go back in with another character, do I still get to send a letter because I'm the host and or single player person? Or is it only when I complete it the first time for story, in which case only one character can really potentially max out a relationship, and then there's no real point to playing the other characters except to have the shops. But I don't know. I'm analyzing this way too much. And I guess we'll find out the hard way.
I've got your reply, Capo. So long, Capo.
Alright, what do we get? I know we got another heart up in here. What else did we get? Rune Bell. That's kind of tempting. I have been leaning heavily on the magic stuff, but I might also try to get that during a multiplayer session, if I decide to use this character. Oh, I actually can't get another heart because I already got the Earth Pendant somewhere else. So maybe I do want to get the Rune Bell. It looks like the best stat increase here, so I might as well just do that. And I have really been leaning heavily on the offensive spell double cast kind of thing to get me through boss battles, so that should help out a lot. And here we're going to end it on a happy note. Here is the Year 1 celebration. Oh no, that's interesting. You can actually see some of your other caravan people here. I don't know why it picked those particular 4, or if the other 4 are going to show up. it's not the characters that I've played, like, in this save slot. So there's some more method to this madness. I'm really not sure why it happened to pick those 4. But that is really interesting to see, and I don't think I ever really got this experience on the GameCube. Oh no, this was always one of my favorite songs as a kid. Now, obviously, if you only make a certain number of characters, then you're not going to see this sort of event, and I suppose if you pick the correct sorts of townsfolk, you can get away with having fewer of them. But it really is fun to see everybody here. Like, you definitely wouldn't get this if you only had 1 or 2 characters. It's also really fun to see, like, all the different races dancing, like, their different styles. Now, I think this is lasting quite a bit longer than it otherwise would, because once when I was, you know, just sort of faffing around, intentionally not doing dungeons because, you know, I saved the initial saves just for multiplayer or whatever, I ran into a whole bunch of the random encounters just during year 1 by, you know, going back and forth across the one crossroads that's in, you know, the first section or whatever. And because of that, I ended up getting like 3 or 4 different cutscenes besides the story-mandated ones. And so now we're getting a lot more information than we otherwise would if we just stuck to the story bits. Now, I'm definitely going to pop into the Mushroom Forest again at some point. Don't know if it'll be on stream or whatnot, but I definitely need to find the Moogle house while I'm in there again, because I'm pretty sure every dungeon has a Moogle house. I don't know if they're all available in Year 1. Like, I'm pretty sure with River Bell, that, like, the pair of Moogles that were there don't actually become active until Year 2. Well, the other neat thing is that Myrrh doesn't regenerate on a tree the immediate next year or whatever. I think it takes like 2, maybe 3 years to come back. And so that's why you constantly have to find new areas to delve into, you know, better equipment to have, and all that jazz. And so that means that, you know, even if I go back into the River Bell next year, you know, I might not get any myrrh from the tree, but I can fight the crab again, certainly, and that Moogle house might be complete. So there is still a reason to go in there. I think I read some posts that maybe the original GameCube version, you couldn't just change your element from the outside, so back in the day, if you wanted to get past, say, a wind-aspected stream, you would actually have to go in there and, you know, change your element to wind, go through, etc., etc. The Miasma stream elements actually change year after year, so like this year it was water to get through between Section 1 and Section 2. Year 2, I think it's either earth or fire, maybe, and so that's why this second dungeon ends up unlocking in the first area, explicitly, like, to give you the access to the next area again, and of course it's also another myrrh tree, another source for your chalice that isn't depleted, unlike the River Bell. And there we have it, folks. That is the end of Year 1 entirely. I hope you enjoyed, whether you're watching this live or if you're coming back watching this as a video afterwards. There will be, again, I mentioned at the very beginning of the stream that I was hoping to get a Space Engineers video out in the next, well, definitely going to be within the month, but hopefully within the next couple of weeks, because I'm really proud of the ship that I've been working on. I get giddy, I seriously get giddy flying it around and just doing stuff in it, but I need to calibrate things like Icy's inventory script, you know, what my thresholds are going to be for that, what my thresholds are going to be within various containers. I need to calibrate sensors for my collision warning system, and I think those are all the functional aspects. I also really want to add some greebling to the outside of the ship, potentially. Not too much, though. It's designed to be a very sleek ship, and that'll be really obvious. I think I have enough dimensionality that it really stands by itself. Hello? Can I really start in this area? Oh, no, it's just showing me what the elements are and what I can get in various places. So yeah, you can see the new dungeon goblin wall is opened up. I can get fire from here. I can go into the Mushroom Forest to get the water for the next area, and then I can get into Zone 3, where some more of the new dungeons are at. Back to Space Engineers real quick. I'm not going to add too much greebling to the ship because I have a nice bit of dimensionality, as I mentioned. But I do think a nice repair beacon would be good, because the nanite system I'm using repairs off of the projection, but if a block is damaged but not totally, completely gone, then it doesn't repair it currently. So that's one more thing that I need to do. But genuinely, the ship is at least 95% complete, and it's technically functional by, you know, any other standard besides my own. So I'm definitely going to try to hammer that out in the next couple of weeks, get a video out, put that on the workshop alongside the scripts that I did, and I'll probably have individual videos for those as well. Don't know when my next Minecraft video is going to be, but I hope to get back into that soon as well. And with that, That's all of the topics I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video / stream. If you liked it, feel free to leave a like. If you're new to the channel and want to see more of this content, Space Engineers, Minecraft, and other stuff, I'm anticipating trying to put out a read-through of the Lone Wolf Choose Your Own Adventure series, possibly a few song covers, etc., etc. Then feel free to subscribe to the channel and click to the bell to be notified. And with that, I will catch you on the flip side. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good night.